package, you will find copies of the minutes from the previous meeting where we did have a public hearing and a regular scheduled meeting. That was on May the 23rd, 2019. Does anyone see any issues or have any questions about the minutes before we sign those into the record? Hearing none, we'll sign those into the record for the public hearing. And then likewise, the actual minutes on the 23rd from the regular scheduled meeting on May the 23rd, 2019. Any questions or corrections on those minutes? Hearing none, we'll sign those into the record. Okay, under new business, item number 1, we have a resolution R-013-19 to approve the issuance of the Walker County Development Authority taxable refinancing revenue bonds series 2019 for the purpose of refinancing previously issued revenue bonds by the authority in order to achieve the debt service savings. Folks, what this is a refinance of some bonds that were done back in 2015 by the previous administration. It was like $15,300,000. And at that time, those bonds were used to finish the construction at the industrial park that was being developed. They were in a deficit standpoint of having enough money to finish that project, and so they had to do a bond issuance. The financial condition of the county at that time was not that good. The county did not have a credit rating or bond rating at that time. So basically, without that rating, you're considered in a junk status as far as your bond rating. So it was a very expensive transaction to do at that time because they had to buy reinsurance, and they also had to take and leverage some of our assets to be able to do that. And so they did a transfer of assets to the Development Authority of Walker County, which consisted of our Civic Center up in Rock Springs, the Agriculture Center, Mountain Cove Farms, the Rock Springs Industrial Park, and the Lafayette Industrial Park, to be able to use those in that project list to show those as collateral against the deal and be able to make this deal happen. The average rate of interest on those bonds worked out to about 5%, which at the time was, being rated up due to the financial condition of the county. We have been working very tirelessly as a team with all of our county staff members and team members to get our financial house back in order over the last 2.5 years. And by doing so, by implementing policies and procedures as far as budgeting, purchase order system, having every entity within county government to actually have a budget that was real, that they would all live by and use as a tool each and every day to manage their part of their section of county government, whether it be an elected official or a department head or others that would have a need to spend money within Walker County. So we have been sacrificing equally, just like our citizens have, with the increased taxes that we've had. So we've been trying to operate as efficiently and as effectively as we could to be able to restore the financial credibility of Walker County. Back a couple of weeks ago, we got our audit completed for fiscal year 2018, which validated the vast improvements that we have been able to make as a team in our financial position for Walker County to get our fund balance back positive and to get us out of a negative net position on our balance sheet. With that, I had engaged with an underwriting firm out of Atlanta that does bond issuance for government entities, and was sharing with them and showing them our financial information, and they were able to very quickly run the ratios and look at our numbers, and was able to see a very clear transformation in county government in Walker County for our financial position going forward. and they felt very strongly that we were now in a financial position to be able to refinance this bond and get a favorable credit rating all at the same time. So they have evaluated our information, have met with the Development Authority and got questions and input from them on Tuesday of this week, and they feel very confident if market conditions stay good and nothing crazy goes on a global basis, that we will be able to get an investment grade credit bond rating for this issuance and be able to reissue these bonds and be able to accomplish several things with this bond issuance, being in a better financial position. One of those things would be to obtain a lower interest rate on those bonds, which will save the taxpayers of Walker County, estimating, depending on how the cost of those bonds come in, but somewhere between $2 and $3 million is what we're being told by the underwriter and our bond attorney that will save in just interest alone on these bonds. Also, we will be able to shorten the term of the bonds by somewhere between 3 and 4 years. And again, those numbers will be locked in once the bonds are actually purchased and are issued. We'll have solid numbers and we'll be able to share with everyone exactly to the penny what those savings are. But what I feel is just equally as important as also lowering those costs and those exposures from a liability standpoint is also being able, as I like to refer to, is get our stuff back. We're going to be able to unencumbered and get the liens off of our agriculture center and our civic center, Mountain Cove Farms, and the Rock Springs Industrial Park and the Lafayette Industrial Park. So those projects or those properties will no longer be needed to ensure the stability of the bond. So that's a great day in Walker County that we can unencumber these properties and be able to get favorable rates and shorter terms. Also, the deal before was such a risky deal in the market that a trustee had to be set up to be able to basically manage the money. And so what they did is they required the county to pay into trust 1 year's worth of payments. And so every February we were having to pay in the payment, which round number is $1.1 million for that bond, basically a year early. So we paid in February of this year to the trustee to cover the payment for next year. So to put that in simple layman terms, that's like being a teenager and having a car payment and mom and dad not sure that you're going to be able to have the money at the first of the month to make your car payment. So you give your money to mom and dad to hold for you so you make sure you make your car payment when it's due. That's how we were as a county government. There was not trust in the financial stability of the county to be able to do that. So they made us go to a trustee, or made the previous administration go to a trustee and give the trustee the money to hold to make sure the money was there when the bond come due that it could be paid. So all of that will go away as well. And so this will be a bond going forward that will be secured by the 1 mil tax that was imposed back in 2015 by the Walker County Development Authority. All development authorities in the state of Georgia have the ability to pledge up to 1 mil of tax for economic development. They did so in 2015. So the 1 mil pledge, and then also on the good faith and credit and the stability of the county government to be able to sign and secure those bond issuance for payment. So we won't have to have the collateral, we won't have to have the trustee, and we will basically be an investment grade bond issuance at a favorable rate that will save several $1 million for Walker County. So that's a pretty good summary of what this stack of documentation is here, of these resolutions. This gets the process started. The bond attorney and the underwriter was with us on Tuesday at the Civic Center for the Development Authority meeting and went over this information and answered questions because the Development Authority had to take action first. And then as the Commissioner of County Government, I bring these documents in and take action in the public meeting and bring this resolution up for discussion or any comments or questions. And then also Matt Williamson, our county attorney, has been working hand in hand with our bond attorney to make sure all the documents and everything were in good order So at this time, if Robert Wardlaw or Matt Williamson, either one, have any additional comments to add to the summary, and then we'll take some questions after that.
I do, just briefly. I think this is one of the most important economic days that we've ever had, probably in the history of this county, and not to be hyperbolic or to overstate it. From pure number standpoint, when we talk about bond issues, it doesn't sound very romantic, but this is real. This is a real effect on people's lives. This really means a lot to us as citizens, and it turns yet that next page on this journey that we've shared together. And this journey has been filled with a lot of sacrifice from every citizen in this county, and all of those that are working to correct this. This is a really big deal, and all of us, everyone you see here and everyone in county government and all of our fellow citizens, I'm sure, have gratitude towards each of you and everyone that would see this on video as well. And one more thing I'd like to say, probably not going to make my colleague here happy, but during that last bond issuance, when that happened, there are ways that county attorneys can find their way into profiting from bond issuance. And that has happened steadfast in our county in the past. That's just a matter of fact. It's not illegal, but it's not necessary, because we're already paying a county attorney. And I just want to commend the commissioner for, when we were talking to Matt about being the county attorney, and Shannon told him from the start, we're no longer, county attorneys and county employees are not going to profit from bond deals anymore in this county. And this man, and I just appreciate this so much, he said, I wouldn't want the job if you would let me do that. And that should be recognized, because this is a smart guy. And I just want to acknowledge that and thank you publicly for giving us the work you give us and accepting your salary and not trying to weasel into other streams of revenue for your personal gain. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you, my friend, for that. And just in that regard, I'd also commend the commissioner and yourself, being the executive director of the Development Authority Board, for not tolerating that. I think that we, as a county, have lived under the shadow of impropriety for too long, and the steps that we can take together as a leadership team to get us out from under the shadow of impropriety that we have lived under is well taken. Any actions that we can do toward that end. And hopefully this action will set a precedent for future county attorneys when I'm no longer in this position.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, any questions, comments, anything about this bond? I know it's a long document here, and we didn't go through this page by page, but this gives us a summary of what we're doing here. And what will happen as they go through this process, we're looking at probably about 60 more days that this is going to take and get to the finish line. There actually will be a bond validation hearing that is part of the protocol in the state of Georgia for all bond issuance through local government. That is actually a Superior Court hearing and process where the Superior Court judge hears from the bond attorney and from the county that all of the legal processes and procedures and things were followed, and that this does meet the requirements of Georgia state law. And so that will be coming up very soon. Also, the Development Authority will have a upcoming meeting, date to be determined, when they get everything ready to actually review and approve or disapprove the final documentations of this issuance, as well as we will do that also here in our county meeting, here at the commissioners meeting. So we will put that information out there, and we will at that time have the exact figures and numbers and all the documentation and everything. So right now our bond attorney and our underwriting counsel are working everything on a contingent basis, and they only get paid if they get the job done and get the bond issuance, and it's favorable to the Development Authority and favorable to the county. So we are in a strong, positive position that if we get close to the finish line and something doesn't look right, feel right, or the rates are not right, we still have the ability to step back and reevaluate or change courses from this deal. And we haven't spent any money at this point in time. So that puts us in a great position. And they're also working through the information submitting to the New York firms that do credit ratings for businesses and for government. And so we'll have that information forthcoming and be able to share with the citizens the actual bond rating that Walker County was able to obtain. But again, they felt very confident that we would be able to achieve a favorable investment grade bond when those bond rating when those issuance come out. Is there any questions, comments? Yes, sir.
Mr. Whitfield, I'd like to say, and I think you'll agree with this, early on, you told me that your initial challenge was to raise the integrity of the Commissioner's office. And I go back to an Atlanta Journal-Constitution editorial back when Gerald Ford took over the presidency, where he picked up the American seal and brushed it off, trying to bring forward the idea that it was his responsibility to raise the bar from where it was. And I, as a citizen, as a voter, I want to thank all of you guys at that table for your efforts in doing that. Win or lose on this thing, I think you've done a miraculous job, and I thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Greg. Okay, any other questions or comments on this resolution? All right, we must have done a pretty good job explaining that. So we appreciate y'all being here. Appreciate you enduring those remarks. But at this time, hearing no other further questions or comments, we'll go ahead and sign these documents so we can get this process moving forward. As always, these are attested by the clerk. All of this information is on our website. I think there's 70, 80 pages here. All of this information is there for everyone to be able to view the details of this, and will stay on there ongoing. Test those as our clerk. Okay, now we have a resolution R14-19 to reappoint Lynn Murdoch to the Rossville Library Board. Resolution R14-19, resolution of the sole commissioner of Walker County to appoint a member of the Rossville Library Board. Whereas OCGA 20-5-42A provides that the County Board of Trustees shall consist of at least one appointee from each governmental agency financially supporting the library on a regular basis. And whereas OCGA 20-542-B provides that the Regional Board of Library Trustees shall consist of trustees serving on membership county boards who are appointed to the Regional Board by each county board for a term specified in writing pursuant to the Constitution and bylaws of the library system. Whereas the sole commissioner of Walker County has the authority to appoint members of the Rossville Public Library Board, and whereas the sole commissioner of Walker County recognizes the qualifications and commitment to public service by Miss Lynn Murdoch via her prior experience on the Rossville Library Board. Therefore, be it resolved by the sole commissioner of Walker County, Georgia, that Miss Lynn Murdoch is hereby reappointed to the Rossville Public Library Board for a term to run from July 1, 2019 to June 30th, 2022. So resolved and adopted the 13th day of June, 2019. This did come on high recommendation. It is part of our packet by our Executive Director of the Cherokee Regional Library System, Lisa Eubanks, and so her letter of support is also in our packet. We do have a letter that we will be signing and sending to Ms. Eubanks, letting her know that we did make this appointment. And also, we have a letter going to Ms. Murdoch, thanking her for her service and making her aware of her appointment. Okay, the last official item of business on our agenda. Each month we put out some statistical data. We show the 3-year prior history, the best we was able to capture the data, especially from 2016, but we do have good data from 2017, 2018, and the year-to-date of 2019, and then we do a 1-month look back each month. We like to bring a lot of attention to our animal shelter and the progresses that are being made at our animal shelter, and show and illustrate the number of animals that are coming in the door and the number of animals that are being adopted, rescued, and returned to owners, and the great reduction in the euthanization of animals and not euthanizing animals in our shelter anymore based off of time or space. So there was 133 dogs that were intaked in May, 63 cats. The shelter staff was successful in finding adopted homes for 32 dogs and 13 cats. Rescues that we work with were able to take and place 72 dogs and 32 cats. Return to owner, 6 of those dogs were returned, and unfortunately, due to health or other type issues that would make an animal not safe to be out in our community, unfortunately, we did have to euthanize 4 dogs this month at the shelter. With our fire department, we always like to highlight it as well. In May, they responded to 505 calls. You can see their historical data. In 2016, they responded to 3,492 calls. 2017, 4,441 calls. And in 2018, they responded to 5,670 calls. Already year-to-date of 2019 of 2,541 calls. So we are responding to a tremendous amount of calls with our first responders. Typically, we find only about 10% of those calls have anything to do with the fire. About 90% of our calls are medical related, lift assist, emergency services, wrecks, those type things. So we make sure our first responders are trained to be EMTs, paramedics, and have life-saving equipment on those trucks, because normally about 90% of our calls are life-saving calls where someone is calling due to injury or health problem. Our roadside litter, unfortunately, this number continues to grow. There was 10,600 pounds of litter picked off our roadsides. The crew does a fantastic job, but it's just sad to have to report to you that there's that much litter that was strode along our roadsides that needed to be cleaned up. Mountain Cove Farms, the staff there continues to do an outstanding job, and our Walker Rocks campaign is proven to be very strong. In May, there was 198 nights stayed at Mountain Cove Farm. And when you look back at the historical data, that was more than the stays for the entire year of 2016. Back under the previous administration, there was only 162 nights in 16, 525 in 17. 2018, there was 908, so we're already at 406 this year, on pace to break 1,000 this year. New single-family home construction, we've been averaging about 125 per year average the last 3 years. There was 15 new home construction building permits that were issued in the month of May, and that was coming off of also a strong month in April for us of 12 permits. So that gets us already to 48 new building permits the first 5 months of this year. And looking back at the amount of rain that we've had in the early part of our year, and for 48 new single-family home construction permits to be issued, I find that very encouraging, the growth and the positive things going on in Walker County. Media impressions and stories, there was 43 that Joe was able to track. That was stories of positive things about Walker County. We added 185 new Facebook followers, which we're continuing to grow there. We're almost at 8,000 Facebook followers, and 2.5 years ago we had 0. So that's a strong showing by the number of people that are following and keeping up with county government on Facebook, and that's all driven by the number of posts and positive and correct information that Joe LeGee is able to put out on our Facebook page. And that illustrates in the month of May, there was 72 posts on Facebook that was made about things going on in Walker County. Our website visits continue to stay strong. We had over 28,000 visits to our website. We only added one newsletter subscriber to our e-newsletter, but if you're not a subscriber to that, that is a email newsletter publication that's done usually the first week of each month. And those are also archived on our website where you can look back at prior editions. But typically those are about a 5-minute read of the highlights of the kind of the top things that happened in that prior month in Walker County. Patching and potholes. I know that's not real exciting, but we like to show that even though you may still find some, we work every month to patch and fill as many of them as we can. Fortunately, under our T-Splosh initiative that the citizens of Walker County were so graciously voted for our T-Splosh back in 2017, we are currently working and paving 25 miles of the worst roads in Walker County. And so they are probably about 40% through that. They're currently working this week to try to get Peavine Road finished up and also East Long Hollow Road. And then they will be moving to Jones Road and then South Burkemill Road in front of Gilbert Elementary, where we've done some drainage work there as well. Our Walker County Transit continues to be a vital part of our community with 2,457 transit trips in Walker County in the month of May. So those are just some of the highlights and some of the great things and some of the productivity of our team members have made in Walker County in the month of May. All right, that officially ends our regular scheduled meeting. At the end of every meeting, we always like to leave time for any citizen comments, suggestions, complaints, or anything to do with county government. We ask you to limit that to your comments to anything dealing with local issues. We have sometimes people would like us to be able to help things in Washington, but we don't have a lot of influence or insight there. So we like to try to keep our issues focused locally. So if you had something that you would like to address the team and address this meeting, we would ask you to come up to the podium and speak your name so we can recognize you, and then we'll give you up to 5 minutes to make any public comments that you would like to make.
Well, Commissioner, I don't know if these folks have anything to say, but I do want to provide one more statistic that didn't make it onto our spreadsheet. For the first time in Walker County history, we took some of the nuisance abatement cases that you all have been hearing about, the
Yes.
ordinance that we enacted, I believe it was in the month of May, or was it March? One of those 2 months. It began with M. Anyway, we enacted the new ordinance that allows us to clean up properties, require the owner to clean the property up. And we took 12 of those cases to magistrate court at the beginning of this month. Of those 12, we had 5 people who came to court. And of those 5 people, 4 were given the opportunity to come back to court and report on any progress that they've made regarding cleaning up or demolishing the structures that are unfit for habitation on their property. And one case, we received a final order from the judge stating that the owner had to clean the property up within 90 days or else the county would be able to go in and take down the structure. So we are making progress on that front.
Good.
This is the reason why we decided to do it this way, is we didn't want to just be in the business of issuing citations, having people pay the fine, and not having any action. This is not about money. It's not about getting money from people. It's not about coming down hard on people. It's about cleaning the county up. And so I'm pleased to report that.
Yes, very good. Thank you for that update.
I have a question on that. So, through the ordinances that we have, and going before the magistrate, if in fact he rules that the county needs to clean it up, what I've heard in the past is the county was entangled in legal web of who owns the property, and can the county lien that property for the cleanup bill? What's the story? How do we follow through on that?
Before we file the complaint in rem, which is what's called for in each of these cases, the ordinance and the state statute regarding the process of this requires us to do a title search on these properties and obtain the information of anyone who, to use the parlance of the ordinance, is an interested party. In other words, if any bank has any outstanding liens on this property, we have to put all of the people who have any ownership interest in the property on notice at the time that we file the complaint. So they are involved in the lawsuit from the get-go. They don't find out about it afterwards. But we do file what's called a lis pendens, which
Say again?
lis pendens is what's filed. If the property is bought or sold during the time that the litigation is pending, that notice puts people on notice that there's something going on with the property. So if anyone who does a title search or searches the lis pendens docket in the Superior Court clerk's records will know something's going on, I need to investigate this further, and they would acquire the property subject to that ongoing litigation. And then whatever the result of the litigation is would run with the property.
So in layman's terms, the county does have a lien on the property for the work that they do, or is that?
The lien comes after the county actually does the work on it.
Okay.
So the judge will enter an order, let's just say 90 days, as we had in one of the cases. The judge says, Mr. Property Owner, you must either bring the structure up to code or demolish the structure within 90 days.
Okay.
After that period of time, if the landowner has not done that, then the county can proceed on its own, either by bringing the property up to code or demolishing the property. The county is required to take anything that they find that's salvageable and sell that, apply that to the cost of the demolition or bringing it up to code, and whatever is left over, that becomes a lien on the property.
Okay.
And so what we're doing, we're starting with the worst of the worst, the ones that are completely uninhabitable, that have been sitting vacated and absolutely collapsing in on themselves. Many of them, the trees growing inside of them in many cases are taller than I am, and these are just properties that are just absolutely probably have no value and bring great safety risk and concern to communities. And so we are starting again with the worst of the worst, and so we want to get these cleaned up and get the property owners motivated to do so, or the county government will get the order from the judge at the appropriate time to take those properties down, haul them off, and then that lien would be based off of just the cost of that demolition that the county would incur, and it would only be for those actual costs.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions, comments, concerns? All right, well, it is 6:35, and we appreciate you coming. We look forward to seeing you back in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Y'all have a great evening.
Thank y'all for coming.